In 2025, global supply chains are under immense pressure. From climate change to geopolitical tensions and trade wars, these factors are causing unexpected shortages of everyday items. In this video, we'll uncover 10 common products that are quietly disappearing from store shelves. We'll delve into the reasons behind these shortages and provide actionable tips to help you stay ahead. Before we get into it, drop your city in the comments. Let's find out which of these chains are disappearing fastest and where. And hit that like button. And subscribe if you've seen any of these places shut down near you. It helps get this warning in front of more viewers. Let's dive in. In 2025, global supply chains are under immense pressure. From climate change to geopolitical tensions and trade wars, these factors are causing unexpected shortages of everyday items. In this video, we'll uncover 10 common products that are quietly disappearing from store shelves. We'll delve into the reasons behind these shortages and provide actionable solutions. You won't believe some of these. Now I know what you're thinking. Are you trying to scare us into hoarding toilet paper again? Not at all. But what I am saying is that there are some very real, very complex factors at play, from supply chain nightmares to climate change, that are starting to impact the availability of things we take for granted. It's not about panic buying, it's about being informed and making smart decisions. These aren't obscure gourmet items we're talking about. These are the basics, the building blocks of our daily meals. The things we just expect to be on the shelves when we do our weekly grocery run. But the reality is, the global food system is under a lot of pressure, and we're starting to see the cracks appear. Understanding these trends now can help you navigate your shopping, manage your budget, and maybe even rethink some of your pantry staples. So, buckle up, because we're going to break down exactly what's happening with each of these 10 items, why they're becoming harder to find or more expensive, and what it means for you as a consumer. This isn't just about a temporary shortage here or there. We're looking at systemic issues that could have long-term implications. Let's get into it, and trust me, you'll want to hear this. First up on our list is canned soup. For decades, it's been the quintessential quick meal, the go-to comfort food when you're sick, and a reliable pantry staple that can sit on your shelf for ages. Many of us grew up on it, and it's always been there, cheap and readily available. But lately, you might have noticed fewer options, or even some empty spaces where your favorite chicken noodle or tomato soup used to be. This isn't just your imagination. There are some serious undercurrents affecting the world of canned soups, and it's a bit more complicated than you might think. The first major culprit, and you've heard me talk about this a lot in other contexts, is the ongoing disruption in global supply chains. Think about what goes into a can of soup. You need the ingredients for the soup itself, then the metal for the cans, the labels, the transportation to get raw materials to the factory, and then the finished product to the stores. Each step in that chain has been hit by labor shortages, increased shipping costs, and a scarcity of raw materials like aluminum. When one link breaks, the whole system grinds to a halt, or at least slows down significantly, making it harder and more expensive to produce. These supply chain issues directly translate to what you see or don't see on store shelves. If a soup manufacturer can't get enough cans, or if their key vegetable supplier has a bad harvest, or if they can't find enough truck drivers to deliver their products, then production numbers drop. They might prioritize their best-selling varieties, leading to less diversity in the soup aisle. You might also notice prices creeping up, as companies are forced to pass on their increased operational costs to us, the consumers. It's a classic case of supply struggling to meet demand, but the reasons are multifaceted. Adding another layer to this is the shifting landscape of consumer preferences. While canned soup is convenient, there's a growing movement towards fresher, less processed foods. People are more health conscious, reading labels more carefully, looking for lower sodium options, organic ingredients, or plant-based alternatives. Many traditional canned soups, with their high sodium content and preservatives, are falling out of favor with a segment of the population. This means manufacturers are also reevaluating their product lines, potentially discontinuing slower-moving older recipes in favor of newer, healthier options that might not have the same widespread appeal or production scale. So, what's the bottom line for canned soup? It's a combination of it being harder and more expensive to make the traditional stuff, and a portion of the market moving away from it. This doesn't mean canned soup will vanish overnight, but you can expect to see continued price increases, potentially less variety, and certain brands or types becoming harder to find. It's a slow fade for some, and a strategic pivot for others in the industry, but the result for your pantry is less certainty. Next on our list is flour, arguably one of the most fundamental ingredients in any kitchen. From bread and cakes to sauces and coatings, flour is a workhorse. For a long time, it's been cheap, abundant, and something we rarely thought twice about grabbing off the shelf. However, the stability of our flour supply is increasingly being threatened, and the primary driver here is something massive and global: climate change. This isn't some distant future problem. It's impacting wheat production right now, and that has direct consequences for the bag of flour in your pantry. Climate change manifests in various ways that are detrimental to wheat cultivation. We're seeing more frequent and intense droughts in major wheat-growing regions like parts of the US, Canada, Australia, and Russia. Wheat needs a specific amount of water at critical growth stages, and prolonged dry spells can decimate yields. On the flip side, some areas are experiencing unprecedented flooding, which can waterlog fields and destroy crops. Then there are the extreme temperature swings, unseasonal heat waves or late frosts that can stress the plants, reduce grain quality, and make them more susceptible to diseases. These erratic weather patterns are no longer isolated incidents. They are becoming the new norm in many agricultural zones. When a major wheat exporting country suffers a significant crop failure due to drought or floods, it sends ripples throughout the global market. The supply tightens, and countries that rely on imports face shortages and higher prices. Farmers are struggling to adapt, and even with advancements in agricultural technology, battling these extreme climate conditions is an uphill struggle. The quality of the wheat can also be affected, meaning the flour produced might not perform as well in baking. The economic fallout is significant. Farmers face lower incomes and increased risks, some even abandoning wheat farming altogether. For us, the consumers, this translates directly into higher prices for flour and all flour-based products. You might have already noticed your bag of all-purpose flour costing more than it did a year or two ago. This isn't just general inflation, it's a direct consequence of reduced global wheat harvests. And it's not just bread. Think pasta, breakfast cereals, pastries. Anything that relies on wheat flour is going to feel this pinch. Looking ahead, the situation for wheat, and therefore flour, is precarious. Scientists are working on developing more resilient wheat varieties, but it's a race against time. We might see a future where flour is consistently more expensive, or where certain types of flour become specialty items. There could also be a greater push towards alternative flours made from other grains, but these often come with different baking properties and their own set of agricultural challenges. For now, that humble bag of flour is becoming a little less humble and a bit more of a precious commodity. Let's talk about canned tuna. For many, it's a go-to for a quick, affordable protein boost. Tuna salad sandwiches, tuna casseroles, or just tuna straight from the can. It's been a pantry fixture for generations. It's convenient, shelf-stable, and relatively inexpensive. However, the future of that can of tuna is looking increasingly uncertain, primarily due to two interconnected issues: overfishing and the growing pressure for sustainable fishing practices. The vastness of the oceans can be deceiving. They are not an inexhaustible resource. The core problem is that many tuna populations, particularly species like bluefin, big eye, and yellowfin, have been fished so heavily that their numbers are dwindling to dangerously low levels. Decades of industrial fishing, using highly efficient and sometimes destructive methods like purse seines with fish aggregating devices, FADs, have taken a massive toll. These methods often result in significant bycatch, meaning other marine species like dolphins, sharks, and turtles are unintentionally caught and killed. This isn't just bad for those species, it disrupts the entire marine ecosystem. As awareness of overfishing and its environmental impact has grown, so has the demand for sustainably sourced tuna. Consumers are increasingly looking for labels like the Marine Stewardship Council (MSC) certification, which indicates that the tuna was caught using methods that are less harmful to fish stocks and the wider marine environment. This is a positive development, but it also puts pressure on the supply chain. Sustainable fishing practices can sometimes mean lower catch volumes or higher operational costs for fishing fleets, which can, in turn, affect the price and availability of certified sustainable tuna. The response from regulatory bodies and the fishing industry itself has been mixed. International commissions set fishing quotas for various tuna species, but enforcement can be challenging, and there's often debate about whether these quotas are strict enough to allow stocks to recover. Some companies are making genuine efforts to improve their sourcing policies, shifting to pole and line caught tuna or fad-free methods. However, these changes take time and investment, and not all segments of the industry are moving at the same pace. This creates a fragmented market where some types of canned tuna are more readily available than others. Ultimately, the days of cheap, abundant canned tuna from any source might be numbered. We're likely to see prices for sustainably caught tuna remain higher, reflecting the true cost of responsible fishing. Less sustainable options might become scarcer as regulations tighten or as fish stocks simply can't support the current fishing pressure. This could mean fewer choices in the supermarket, smaller can sizes, or a shift towards other, more sustainable canned fish options. Your tuna sandwich might start to carry a heavier environmental and financial weight. Peanut butter, a beloved staple in countless households, the star of the classic PB&J sandwich, a source of protein and a comfort food for many. It seems like such a simple, reliable product. You buy a jar, it lasts for a while, and it always tastes the same. But behind that creamy or crunchy spread, the peanut industry is facing some significant agricultural challenges, particularly from crop diseases that are threatening harvests. This could mean that your favorite spread might not always be as readily available or as affordable as it once was. Peanuts, like any agricultural crop, are susceptible to a range of diseases. Some of the major culprits include early and late leaf spot, which are fungal diseases that can cause significant defoliation, weakening the plant, and reducing pod yield. Then, there's white mold, also known as southern stem rot, which attacks the base of the plant and the pods themselves, leading to substantial losses both in the field and during storage. These diseases thrive in certain weather conditions, often exacerbated by humidity and warm temperatures, conditions that are becoming more common in some peanut-growing regions due to climate shifts. When these diseases take hold in a peanut-growing area, the impact on harvest can be devastating for farmers. They might experience significantly lower yields per acre, meaning less peanuts overall. The quality of the harvested peanuts can also be affected, with diseased nuts being unsuitable for processing into peanut butter. Farmers have to invest in fungicides and disease management practices, which adds to their production costs. Despite these efforts, losses can still be substantial, particularly if weather conditions are highly favorable for disease development. This creates a volatile supply situation. This instability in peanut harvests has a direct ripple effect on the production of peanut butter. If manufacturers can't secure enough high-quality peanuts, or if the price of raw peanuts skyrockets due to shortages, they have to make some tough decisions. They might need to raise the price of peanut butter to cover their increased costs, which we as consumers then bear. In more severe cases, if the peanut shortage is acute, it could lead to actual scarcity on the shelves, or manufacturers might reduce the number of specialty peanut butter varieties they produce, focusing only on their core products. While agricultural researchers are constantly working on developing more disease-resistant peanut varieties and better management strategies, it's an ongoing battle. Factors like climate change can introduce new stresses or alter the geographic range of certain diseases, making the fight even harder. So while peanut butter isn't likely to disappear completely, we could face periods of tighter supply, higher prices, and perhaps a bit less certainty when we reach for that jar. It's a reminder that even our most familiar foods are connected to complex agricultural systems vulnerable to nature's challenges. Bottled water, it's everywhere. From convenience stores to vending machines to our own homes, it has become a symbol of hydration on the go, and for some, a perceived healthier alternative to tap water. For years, the industry boomed, with seemingly endless varieties and brands. But the tide is beginning to turn on single-use plastic water bottles, and this shift, driven by environmental concerns and regulatory changes, could mean we see less of it on the shelves, or at least a significant change in how it's packaged and sold. The biggest issue, and it's one that's gained massive public attention, is the environmental impact of plastic bottles. Most are made from PET plastic, which is derived from fossil fuels. The production process itself has a carbon footprint, and then there's the issue of disposal. Despite recycling efforts, a staggering number of plastic bottles end up in landfills, or, even worse, polluting our oceans and waterways, breaking down into microplastics that harm wildlife and potentially human health. The sheer volume of plastic waste generated by bottled water consumption is becoming unsustainable. This growing environmental awareness is fueling significant regulatory changes in many parts of the world. We're seeing an increasing number of cities, states, and even entire countries implementing bans or restrictions on single-use plastics, including plastic water bottles. Some jurisdictions are introducing deposit return schemes or taxes on plastic bottles to encourage recycling and discourage consumption. These regulations make it more challenging and costly for companies to produce and sell water in traditional plastic bottles, forcing them to explore alternatives or face reduced market access. Alongside regulatory pressure, there's a noticeable shift in consumer behavior. More and more people are becoming conscious of their plastic footprint and are actively seeking alternatives to single-use bottled water. The popularity of reusable water bottles has surged, and home water filtration systems are becoming increasingly common. This consumer-led movement away from single-use plastics is sending a clear message to the beverage industry. The demand for water packaged in disposable plastic is waning, at least among a growing, environmentally aware segment of the population. So, what does this mean for the future of bottled water as we know it? It's unlikely to vanish completely, but we can expect significant transformations. We might see more water sold in alternative packaging, like aluminum cans or glass bottles, which have their own environmental considerations but are often seen as more recyclable. Companies might focus more on larger format, multi-serve containers rather than individual bottles. And yes, in some places, due to regulations and shifting demand, the sheer ubiquity of single-use plastic bottled water might indeed decrease, making it a less common sight. Pasta. It's a global comfort food, a versatile and affordable meal base that graces dinner tables multiple times a week in many households. From spaghetti to penne, lasagna to macaroni, it's a pantry essential. But the foundation of good quality pasta, especially the dried pasta most of us buy, is durum wheat. And right now, durum wheat is facing some serious shortages, which is putting pressure on pasta prices and availability. That box of your favorite pasta shape might become a little harder to find or noticeably more expensive. Durum wheat is a hard wheat variety that's high in protein and gluten, which gives pasta its desirable texture and ability to hold its shape during cooking. It's different from the common wheat used for bread flour. The best durum wheat is grown in specific regions with particular climatic conditions, most notably in Canada, parts of the United States, Italy, and other Mediterranean countries. These are the powerhouses of durum production, and when they face problems, the entire global pasta industry feels it. The primary driver of current durum wheat shortages is, once again, climate change and its associated extreme weather events. Last year, and in preceding years, key durum-growing regions, particularly in Canada, the world's largest durum exporter, and the northern U.S. plains, experienced severe droughts and extreme heat waves. These conditions drastically reduced yields, in some cases by as much as 30 to 50%. Italy, another major producer and consumer of durum, has also faced its own drought challenges, further straining global supplies. When supply plummets like this, prices inevitably skyrocket. The consequences for pasta manufacturers are direct and severe. They are paying significantly more for their primary raw ingredient, durum semolina. These increased costs are often, and almost inevitably, passed on to consumers in the form of higher pasta prices. You've likely seen this already in the supermarket. Beyond price, severe shortages can also lead to difficulties in sourcing enough durum wheat to meet production demands, potentially leading to temporary unavailability of certain pasta brands or shapes. Some manufacturers might even be forced to alter their recipes, perhaps blending durum with other wheat types, which could affect the quality and texture we expect. Looking forward, the volatility in durum wheat production is a major concern. Unless there are significant improvements in weather conditions in key growing areas, or breakthroughs in developing more drought-resistant durum varieties, we can expect continued price pressure and potential supply inconsistencies for pasta. This might mean being more flexible with the pasta shapes you buy, or budgeting a bit more for this pantry staple. The humble plate of pasta is becoming a more direct indicator of global agricultural stresses. Canned vegetables have long been a cornerstone of the well-stocked pantry. They offer convenience, a long shelf life, and a way to get vegetables into your diet even when fresh options are out of season or too expensive. Think canned corn, peas, green beans, tomatoes. They're basics for many recipes and quick side dishes. However, there's a slow but steady trend that's threatening the availability and variety of these canned goods, a decline in the number of active canning facilities. This behind-the-scenes issue is starting to have on-the-shelf consequences. The reasons for the decline in canning facilities are multifaceted. Firstly, many of these plants are old, with aging infrastructure that requires significant capital investment to modernize and meet current efficiency and regulatory standards. Secondly, the canning industry, like many manufacturing sectors, faces challenges with labor. Finding and retaining workers for what can often be seasonal and demanding jobs. Consolidation within the food processing industry has also led to the closure of smaller, less profitable canneries as companies streamline operations and centralize production in larger, more strategically located plants. This reduction in canning capacity creates a bottleneck, especially during peak harvest seasons for vegetables. Farmers might grow an abundant crop of tomatoes or green beans, but if there aren't enough local or regional canning facilities to process them quickly, a significant portion of that harvest can go to waste. Vegetables need to be canned shortly after picking to maintain quality and safety. Fewer facilities mean longer transportation times to the nearest cannery, increased costs for farmers, and a reduced overall volume of vegetables that actually make it into cans. The impact on consumers might not be immediately obvious as a sudden disappearance, but more of a gradual shift. You might notice less variety in terms of brands or types of canned vegetables available. Smaller niche producers who relied on local canneries might struggle to find processing partners. The overall volume of domestically canned vegetables might decrease, leading to a greater reliance on imports, which can have their own supply chain vulnerabilities and price fluctuations. Essentially, the system's capacity to preserve an abundant harvest is shrinking. While there's a strong consumer demand for fresh and frozen vegetables, which offer different benefits, canned vegetables still fill an important role, especially for budget-conscious shoppers, and for emergency preparedness. The decline in canning infrastructure is a quiet problem, but it affects the resilience of our food supply chain. It means that when there are bumper crops, we might not be able to take full advantage of them by preserving them for later use, potentially leading to more waste at the farm level and less availability on pantry shelves down the line. Cooking oil, whether it's vegetable, canola, sunflower, soybean, or olive oil, is an absolute essential in most kitchens. We use it for frying, sautéing, baking, and making dressings. It's a product we often buy in large bottles and expect to be readily available and reasonably priced. However, a growing global demand is putting a squeeze on the supply of many common cooking oils, and one of the major and perhaps surprising drivers is the biofuel industry. The very same crops used to produce our cooking oils are increasingly being diverted to produce fuel for cars and trucks. The push for biofuels such as biodiesel and renewable diesel stems from efforts to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and lower greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector. Governments around the world have implemented mandates and subsidies that encourage the production and use of biofuels. Vegetable oils, particularly soybean oil, palm oil, rapeseed, canola oil, and sunflower oil, are key feedstocks for these biofuels. As biofuel production ramps up to meet these mandates, a significant portion of the global harvest of these oilseed crops is being channeled away from the food market. This diversion has a direct and predictable impact on the supply of these oils for food consumption. When a large chunk of the soybean or rapeseed crop is bought up by biofuel refineries, they're simply less available for food processors to turn into the cooking oil that ends up on supermarket shelves. It's a classic supply and demand scenario. Demand for these oils is increasing from two major sectors, food and fuel, while supply, though efforts are made to increase it, often struggles to keep pace, especially when weather events also impact crop yields. The consequence for consumers is, you guessed it, higher prices. As food manufacturers and biofuel producers compete for the same raw materials, the price of crude vegetable oils on the global market increases. These costs are then passed down the supply chain, leading to more expensive bottles of cooking oil in your grocery cart. You might also see less availability of certain types of oil or smaller bottle sizes for the same price, which is a form of hidden inflation. This isn't just a temporary blip, it's a structural shift in how these agricultural commodities are being utilized. The debate around food versus fuel is complex. While biofuels offer some environmental benefits, the impact on global food prices and food security, especially for vulnerable populations, is a serious concern. Geopolitical factors like conflicts in major sunflower oil-producing regions can further exacerbate these shortages and price hikes. For the average consumer, It means that cooking oil, once a cheap and plentiful commodity, is becoming another item on the grocery list that requires a bit more budget consideration and might occasionally be harder to find in your preferred variety. Rice is a foundational food for more than half the world's population. It's a staple in countless cuisines, providing essential calories and sustenance. From long grain to basmati, jasmine to arborio, its varieties are diverse and culturally significant. We often take its availability for granted, assuming those bags of rice will always be plentiful and affordable on supermarket shelves. However, rice farming is incredibly water-intensive, and growing water scarcity in key rice-producing regions is posing a significant threat to future supplies. Think about traditional rice cultivation. It typically involves flooding paddies with water for a significant portion of the growing season. This method requires vast amounts of fresh water. Many of the world's major rice bowls, located in Asia but also in parts of the Americas and Africa, are facing increasing water stress. This is due to a combination of factors, including climate change leading to more erratic rainfall patterns and prolonged droughts, depleting groundwater reserves from over-extraction for agriculture and other uses, and inefficient water management practices. When water becomes scarce, rice farmers are directly impacted. They may not have enough water to adequately flood their paddies, leading to reduced plant growth and significantly lower yields. In severe drought conditions, entire crops can be lost. Some farmers might be forced to switch to less water-intensive crops, reducing the overall land area dedicated to rice cultivation. The quality of the rice can also suffer under water stress. This isn't just a localized problem. When major rice-exporting countries like India, Thailand, or Vietnam experience water shortages, it has global ramifications. The consequences of reduced rice harvests due to water scarcity include rising prices for consumers worldwide. As global supply tightens, the cost of rice on international markets increases, and this is reflected in the prices we pay at our local grocery stores. For billions of people who rely on rice as their primary food source, these price hikes can have devastating impacts on food security and household budgets. It can also lead to export restrictions by some countries trying to ensure domestic supply, further tightening the global market. Efforts are underway to develop more water-efficient rice farming techniques, such as alternate wetting and drying (AWD) or direct seeding, as well as drought-resistant rice varieties. However, widespread adoption of these methods takes time, investment, and education. The challenge of ensuring a stable and affordable rice supply in the face of growing water shortages is immense. That bag of rice in your pantry represents a complex agricultural system that is increasingly vulnerable to the planet's changing water resources, making it another item whose future abundance isn't guaranteed. And finally, number 10 on our list, an item that for many is non-negotiable to start the day: coffee. That aromatic brew, whether it's a simple cup of drip, a fancy espresso, or a cold brew, is a daily ritual for hundreds of millions globally. We depend on it for energy, for comfort, for social connection, but the future of our beloved coffee beans is under serious threat, primarily from the relentless advance of climate change, which is hitting coffee-growing regions hard and making that morning cup potentially scarcer and more expensive. The two main species of coffee cultivated globally, Arabica and Robusta, are quite particular about their growing conditions. Arabica, which accounts for the majority of global production and is prized for its flavor and aroma, thrives in specific altitudes with consistent rainfall and moderate temperatures. Robusta is hardier but still vulnerable. Climate change is disrupting these delicate balances in coffee-growing zones, which are mostly located in the bean belt around the equator, including countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Rising temperatures are a major issue. As global temperatures climb, traditional coffee-growing areas are becoming too hot for optimal cultivation. This forces farmers to try and move to higher, cooler altitudes, but suitable land is limited. Erratic rainfall patterns, too much rain at the wrong time leading to fungal diseases, or prolonged droughts stressing the plants, are also wreaking havoc. Furthermore, changing climate conditions are creating more favorable environments for pests like the coffeeberry borer and diseases like coffee leaf rust, which can decimate entire plantations. These factors combined are leading to reduced yields and lower quality beans. The impact on coffee farmers, many of whom are smallholders, is severe. They face declining incomes and increased uncertainty, making it harder to invest in their farms or adapt to changing conditions. For us, the coffee drinkers, the most immediate impact is rising prices. As global coffee bean supplies tighten due to lower harvests, the cost of green coffee beans on the international market goes up. Roasters and coffee shops then have to pass these increased costs on to consumers. You've probably noticed your favorite bag of beans or your daily latte getting more expensive. Looking ahead, the long-term sustainability of coffee production is a huge concern. Researchers and organizations are working on developing more climate-resilient coffee varieties and promoting sustainable farming practices, but it's an enormous challenge. We might see a future where high-quality Arabica coffee becomes more of a luxury item, with prices continuing to climb. The variety of origins and flavor profiles available could also diminish if certain growing regions become unviable. That daily cup we so often take for granted is facing a very real existential threat, making it more important than ever to understand the journey from bean to cup. So there you have it, folks. 10 everyday items that are quietly disappearing from our pantries, or at least becoming more expensive and harder to reliably find. From the canned soup that warms us up to the coffee that wakes us up, the factors at play are complex, ranging from supply chain disruptions and climate change to shifting consumer habits and resource competition. It's a sobering look at how interconnected our global food system is and how vulnerable it can be. The key takeaway here isn't to panic, but to be aware and prepared. Understanding these trends can empower you to make smarter choices. This might mean strategically stocking up on certain non-perishables when they are on sale or more readily available. It could involve being more flexible with brands or trying alternative products. Perhaps it's about reducing food waste in your own home to make the most of what you have. Being informed about why prices are changing also helps in budgeting and financial planning, so you're not caught off guard by a suddenly more expensive grocery bill. The world is changing, and so is our access to certain goods. Staying informed about these shifts is crucial. Keep an eye on agricultural news, pay attention to how global events might impact food supply, and continue to educate yourselves. Small adjustments in our awareness and shopping habits can make a big difference in navigating these evolving pantry realities. Make sure to stock up while you can and stay informed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more updates. See you next time.